Well, hello investors and traders, I'm L.A. Little and this is your daily NeoTA wrap, where we take a look at these markets and we do it from a neoclassical perspective. Each time we're asking ourselves what happened today, what might it tell us about the coming ones. Do this show 4 times a week, every Monday through Thursday. It's broadcast at before 10 o'clock Eastern Time. It's archived on YouTube and it's under the channel L.A. Little. If you want to subscribe, reach up there, hit the subscribe button. Anytime content's pushed, it'll be notifying you. Neoclassical. What does neoclassical mean? You know, what it means is we want the market to tell us what it's doing. And each night, I give you, to some extent, my view of what it's telling me, which I believe is what it's telling all of us. And I do it by using the constructs of neoclassical thought. So I want to come back to that thought here in a second, but first let's pop over, take a look at the numbers. As you know, last week, I was talking about that it was probably worth going long these indexes. We were talking about that on Thursday on that reversal. You got a nice big bump up today of a 2.5% on the Russell, across the board. Bonds down, so everything was going up right before when everything was bad, bonds, gold, so forth. They come down hard, and silver the same, and bonds. And then everything else that couldn't go up goes up, right? Total reversal, a reversal of fortune. The only thing that didn't do so well today in the equity space was the DAX. We'll take a look at that one because I still think that's one of the more important markets for the U.S. markets. And over in Asia, you had a nice little push up. So I want to come back to that idea of, what does the market tell you? How does it tell you what it's wanting to do? What is it that we see in the market on a nightly basis, on a weekly basis, that gives us some indication of what its intentions are? That's what's important. Not what you or I think, but what the collective mind of the market thinks and how you and I can find that out. Let's go to the indexes, S&P 500, and then as we go through here tonight, I'll give you my ideal of what that is. Now, on the S&P 500, the only indication you have here tonight is that you've got over the high of the low, right? That was kind of the key spot to get back over. The little ledge was right there, right? Pops over it, gets over it. That says this thing can try to go higher. So there's nothing here to stop this from trying to shoot up to the swing point high. But that's not the real story elsewhere. Now the S&P is telling us, things are okay and we're heading back up. But when we come elsewhere is when we start seeing what the market's trying to say. And it hasn't told us the story yet, because what the market does is it's at points of significance that it tells us what it wants to do. And when you get enough of those points of significance telling you what it wants to do, then you get an idea about what it really is probably going to do. And so one of those points of significance in the neoclassical thought is a retest regenerate. And what that simply is when you break a swing point. Here we broke a swing point low, got underneath it. Within 6 bars, we get back into it. When you do that, you're going to try to reach the other side of it. That's up into this area. And if you look at this closely, you'll see that your high volume bars are here and here. And so that area, if we draw it in here, is right across there. So this is going to try to get into that area. That's what it's shooting for. Well, it's not that far away. And so it's at that point that the market's going to tell us what it wants to do. In other words, if it can just come right through here, it will change the ideal of down to an ideal of sideways, right? It will change the tune of the market. And if it does that, then we have to respect that it's doing that. That's how the market talks to you. It talks to me that way, and it talks to you that way if you want to listen. And so a retest regen is kind of an early warning system, if you will. The NASDAQ's coming up. It's going to try to test into that area. That's where we're going to find out what this market wants to do. And if you go through almost any of the indexes, here's the NDX. There's that swing point low. Take the high, take the low. That's your retest regen zone. The Russell, same thing. High, low. Take that. Look at it. that gives you the retest regenerate zone. But as you know, in Neoclassical, we don't look at just the US indexes because they're not the only thing moving things. We have to look around the world as well. So if we look at the DAX, what is the DAX doing? Well, it's retest regen, folks. It's everywhere. Retest regen is here. It's coming back into it. The big breakdown bar is there. That's going to be the key spot to try to get over, right? Price point there is 9337, and here the low is a little bit lower, 9314. So between about 9315, 9340, that area, that's going to be the tough spot to get over. DAX is going to try to hit it tomorrow, and we'll see what it wants to do. That's where it will talk to us and tell us what it's thinking, right? What the collective mind of the market thinks. France, a little bit stronger, going to try to get to the full retest. In other words, all the way to the top, test it. London looks the same, right? Big retest regenerate zone. It's almost to the top of it, going to try to test it. And if we look at our friends over in Switzerland, they're coming up just like the DAX into the bottom of the retest regen zone. If we look in Asia, you got the same story over there. If we look at Japan, Japan back into the low of the swing point low. That's the retest regen zone. And I can keep going across the board. They're all the same. Hong Kong looks the same. Shanghai looks the same. They're all doing the same thing. They break it, and you can see the break here on Hong Kong. They break it, and then they try to take it right back to the other side. Hong Kong actually hit it last night. It's going to try to test it again tonight. Volume's not there, but if you get over the price, the volume doesn't matter for now. So it just simply says, volume is, there's a big misnomer in technical analysis where volume is everything. No, volume qualifies trend. It's not the Holy Grail. It simply says you have a higher probability or a lower probability of trend continuance. That's what it really tells you. And if you pick up my second book, you'll see that. It's in the Neoclassical model. But, that's what it's telling us. That's what it's trying to do. That's where the test is going to be. And also, we don't look at just the indexes, right? We look at everything. I mean, I don't always show all these things because I don't have time. But if you pop over and you pull up the major sectors, you're going to see it there too, right? You're going to see the same thing I just talked about. The strongest one right now, I talked about it had bottomed out about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And sure enough, it keeps crawling back up. Swing point lows up here, that's where it's trying to get to. It wants to get back up there and test into it. And if you look at it on the weekly, right, it's already testing into the swing point low. That's the retest, and it will try to regenerate in the direction of the trend. That's what retest regen means. So we're going to try to come up. We're going to try to pop up to that area. So in this case, we're going to try to get into this bar, and then once we get up into there somewhere, right, it's going to try to regenerate in the direction of the break, right? The break was here. The direction was down. We're going to try to do it again. That's the regeneration. Early warning system if they can't do it. If they do it, trend continuance. That's where you want the market to talk to you. That's where you want the market to tell you what it's thinking. The big story, I think, is going to be in the DAX tomorrow. That's what's going to affect our markets. As we saw, the DAX is coming up in that area. We can get a little bit more view of that if we go over to the euro. So I pop over quickly to the euro, take a look at it. Euro coming back into the swing point high. And this is just the opposite case, right? It's still a retest regenerate, but in this case, it's a bullish retest and regenerate. So what we're talking about here is as this comes back, right, it broke a swing point high. It's been more than 6 bars. As it comes back into it, it's a fairly high probability they're going to try to buy it and send it back the other way. If they do that, what's going to happen to the DAX? It's going to go back down the other way. And so here, if we're looking at the euro itself, the probabilities are reasonably good that when the euro pulls back a little bit more, if it gets back that far, it's going to try to regenerate back to the top side. And of course, that's going to hurt equities. I'm going to leave it at that. That's where we sit tonight. We've got all the stories coming up probably tomorrow, the next day, and we're going to see what this market wants to do. That's when it's going to talk to us. Right now, which way is it going to go? Well, I think that story is dependent on the DAX. The DAX is almost to the retest regen. Probably get the test tomorrow. That's where we'll find out. Folks, thanks for joining me. You tell a friend, tell two, I'm LA. This is and was your daily NeoTA wrap. Have a great night, and I'll see you next time. Good night.